money is such an important tool for society and humanity that if you mess with it, it has downstream effects on so much, right? And I think that's what a lot of people that don't understand Bitcoin don't see. Money is almost like this thing, this abstraction in the background that we know we have to have for certain reasons, even if they don't really know why it's so important for humanity as a tool. They don't fully understand the depths of how far apart our current money has come from what money should be, especially even just like the properties of what gold was and for thousands of years. I tell this to so many people that don't understand Bitcoin yet, just trying to tell them that our money at the base layer, it's stealing from us, right? But it's like it doesn't compute with them for some reason, I guess, because it's like, well, that's just what money does. It's kind of a bizarre thing. You know, when you really think it from first principles, like, do you want to work for a money that someone can print? I'm not going to work for something that another man can print out of thin air, right? But we all do. I guess it's just recency. It's just because it's normal that we just continue to just think that there's no way we can change it. It's like there's a little bit of that too, right? It's like that nihilism, thinking that we can't change the things in our lives that are so cemented, like governments and authority and money. But Bitcoin really challenges that stuff head on, right? Bitcoin is moral, as a more moral foundation for our money, which is hugely important. Because I realized when I went down the rabbit hole pretty early on that I thought I knew what money was, but I really didn't know what money was. And I think that's true for, just speaking about the normal people in my life that I've tried to orange pill. If you told them they didn't understand money, they'd probably get offended. They're like, well, of course I know what money is. It's an abstraction of, everyone has like an idea of what it is, but as any Bitcoiner knows, you go deep down the rabbit hole and you're really learning about, the history of money, why money has evolved the way it has, why we're using the current money that we have and why that's very different from other money in a lot of negative ways. So I think it's just the drilling into the fact that Bitcoin is a tool, it's money, but it has a more moral, fair, it's like more morally fair at the foundation. And that's super important. Everyone is flying by the seat of their pants with this, what we're going to do with money and the financial system going forward. It becomes very clear when you look into it pretty deeply and how everything works with the Fed and interest rates and monetary policy and quantitative easing. They have all these fancy words, but no one knows what the heck they're doing. The internet was such a novelty thing for quite a long time, even just when I was growing up. And then it got to a point where it's like no one can even fathom a world without the internet right now, right? And I think that the same thing is going to happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoiners and gold bugs are on the same team, really, right? But I was just like, I can't bring myself to buy gold because Bitcoin is just better than it in every single way. Like it's just in my mind, I can't be like, oh, I'm going to buy like 5% or 10% gold. And it's done really well. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it's, all-time high now, but Bitcoin, like the upside potential is just miles better. And it's just a better form of money in every single way. That's why it's super bullish right now, because gold has been having an amazing run right now. And that's because gold is sniffing the changing, global monetary order that we're talking about, that Ray Dalio is talking about, that Scott Bessent's talking about, that everyone kind of that is like really plugged into the global macroeconomic thing that knows. So gold is sniffing that out. And I think that Bitcoin will follow. I don't know when that's going to be. Like the Bitcoin price and gold chart has looked bullish for a long time because we're kind of entering this more uncertain time of US dollar dominance, stuff like that. I think gold's going to continue to go on quite a run. But I think eventually Bitcoin's going to completely, just like it has historically, outperform it and just go raw, That's another interesting thing about Bitcoin is that it's like gold can go steadily up for a long time. It's like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, gold's like $3,200 an ounce. It's amazing. But Bitcoin is mostly, this is a good thing to teach someone that's just getting into Bitcoin. 95% of the time, Bitcoin is boring and down. It's literally like 10 or 11 days of the year where it goes crazy parabolic. And I think it's almost like this psychology thing with people where that happens. And then all of a sudden, so it goes crazy parabolic like it did, last year, and it's 85K or 100K, whatever. And then you get used to it at that stage because it starts going boring for all it takes is a month or two of boring sideways. And you're like, it's like that meme of like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's 105K or Bitcoin's 85K celebrating. And then 2 weeks later, Bitcoin's 85K, you're upset, right? Because it's like that human psychology thing of just it being so in such a short constrained time period. So it's like, that's why you don't trade it, obviously, as well. Because how are you as a trader going to be able to time when those 10 days are going to be, when it's going to go parabolic? You can't. So that's why you just keep stacking and chill. I know you said it seems like there's a new monetary order happening, but I would argue that like it's pretty clearly happening if you're paying attention, right? Even Ray Dalio today came out and he's been saying this forever. I think Ray Dalio's been saying it for the last 5 years or so too. It's like there's a new monetary a paradigm shift happening. There's, everything is changing. And then, the person interviewing is just like, so are we going to get a recession? He's just like, he's trying to tell him like, no, everything is changing. You don't understand. Like the whole system is getting, because people are, nations are losing trust in the US dollar or the ability for the US dollar to stay, or the US government to stay solvent. There's a whole bunch of different reasons for it. And I see the whole tariff and trade war stuff as an attempt to leverage the best position of power to negotiate a new monetary. It's like the Bretton Woods 2. There is another one coming. Let's come up with a new agreement, whether it's a trade agreement. And I think the money is going to be thrown into that agreement whenever it does come up. The fact that we have Bitcoin during that time is wild. It almost is surreal to me that the timing of the release of Bitcoin sometimes and how it just like coincided with some. That's why people are, I think, come to the conclusion like, oh, Satoshi was a time traveler, because it's just too perfect. You can't deny that it's incredible times that we're living in. I've got my popcorn out. The whole idea that Bitcoin is like super tightly correlated with traditional assets is from like, it's like when you're looking at it, just like what we're talking about, if you're looking at it every day, day to day, and like it's fluctuating with the news or with big things in the macro space, like the tariffs, you're going to see some correlation. But I think if you zoom out, it's already decorrelated from that stuff, right? Like it so clearly has, even just you zoom out in just this year. And even though we had most of the run up was like after the election between November and December, I know it went up a little bit in January too, but even just this year, it's outperformed all the stocks and all that, so it's like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. So I think it's already decoupled, but generally though, obviously it's going to still follow the trends of the market. Like, I mean, the biggest example that it's more decoupled than it was 5 years ago was the COVID crash, and it dropping, what was it, 75%. During the liquidation during COVID. And then this time around with the, whatever you want to call it, the tariff trade war kind of panic, everything dumped way more. And Bitcoin only dumped, like 10% or something like that? Like it was already down a little bit, right? Before all that stuff kind of ramped up a little bit. I mean, it's only down 25% from its all-time high right now. So that's a signal right there. That's a big signal in my opinion, that there's a huge black swan, everything's burning. The global economic system is, we're going to have a recession, and Bitcoin's, just corrects just a tiny bit compared to what it did in 2020. That is the signal that it's going to decouple, but it's going to be a slow, steady pace of decoupling. And I think that was very interesting. And I don't think it was nothing on on last Friday, I think it was, where it looked like, everything dumped up a lot and Bitcoin was steady. That was like, okay, something's going on here, right? And I think that was just another example of the decoupling that is happening in real time. But it's, if you pay attention to things day to day, you're not necessarily going to, it's not like it's all of a sudden every time the S&P and everything goes down, Bitcoin's going to go up, right? There's going to be some correlation, but over time, Bitcoin is already separating itself from everything else. And all you need to do is zoom out to see that.